The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Jimmy Song, Bitcoin developer.
Hey everybody, good to be here.
Jeffrey Jones from the Bitcoin News Show.
Happy Friday, guys.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue 1. Issue 1. Bitcoin's coming split. What you need to know. The Segwit2X split is getting closer and closer, and even the mainstream media like Fortune magazine has started paying attention to Bitcoin. They all want to know what will happen next, if they'll split the coin, if the developers will leave. What will happen next? Jimmy Song.
Well, I'm actually working on an article right now to go over sort of the game theory scenarios. I've been in San Francisco, at Stanford for scaling Bitcoin as well as Dev++ and my seminar programming blockchain for the past week. So I've been talking to a lot of people. There are some scenarios that will result in some strife. Most of them, though, it looks like, at least in my analysis, I think Bitcoin goes up. But I want to sort of recast this entire debate because talk to people, the more it's clear that the block size is very important to a lot of businesses for the main reason that they're the ones utilizing it, right? Most of the blocks are filled with transactions that are generated by businesses that are, either sending money to people or sending money to other businesses or whatever, and they utilize most of the block space. Whereas the users, the holders, they don't utilize the block space that much, and they're the ones that are sort of holding, and they send maybe 5-10 transactions a year, if that, and most of the time they're just using Bitcoin as a store of value, and that's really the clash. The big conflict here is that businesses want the block size to get bigger because that they're the ones that are utilizing it, and users would rather have more security because they're using it as a store of value, and those two things are sort of coming to a head here. It will be interesting to see what happens, but I actually think a lot of these businesses end up going to 2x. Well, they're obviously going to utilize a lot of that block size, but for the most part, for the users, I actually think the legacy coin or 1x or whatever you want to call it, or core or whatever, it's actually not going to have that many transactions, because if the businesses go to 2x, then that's actually, that'll free up a lot of block space on Bitcoin. So in a way, I think everyone's going to kind of get what they want, which is businesses that want to go and do 2x, they get bigger blocks so they can do whatever it is, do more transactions. And the store of value people, the ones that care more about security and things about like that related to store of value, they get a chain that's more secure, that doesn't change, that's very difficult to change. And if my investment thesis is correct, that store of value is the main thing that gives Bitcoin value, then the Bitcoin, core 1x, the backwards compatible one, that's the one that's going to have a higher price as a result. But I'm more coming to the view that people are trying to do different things with Bitcoin, and a hard fork in this instance may actually get everybody what they want and allow everyone to go their separate ways. And we'll see if these businesses have as much demand if they're utilizing 2x as the main thing versus other people. But yeah, and who knows what the market cap goes to if you have a medium of exchange coin, which is what these businesses are utilizing it for. But I believe in sound money being the main driver of Bitcoin's growth. So if that's the case, then the 1x side should have a higher price.
Jimmy, do you think there'll be no transactions on the 1x side because of the incredibly slow block times? If it takes a day or 3 days to send my money, maybe I wouldn't use that network?
Well, so, for the most part, even I think the minimum is like maybe 10%. And I'm doing some math here as part of the article. We're going to be right in the middle of a difficulty adjustment period. So there will be about 1,000 blocks before difficulty adjusts on the Bitcoin, on both chains, actually. And if there's like 10% of, the hash rate, a normal difficulty block period is, adjustment period is 2 weeks. It's going to, a difficulty adjustment period would then be 20 weeks, but we'd already be halfway through. So you'd only have to wait like 10 weeks for it to adjust. So maybe for like 2.5 months, so sometime in January or February, we would see an adjustment. And until then, you're going to have something like 100-minute blocks, hour 40 blocks. It's not the worst thing in the world, especially if you're using it as a store of value. And I imagine most of the people that are holders, they're mostly going to transact the 2x coins, right? To go sell it or put it onto an exchange. I suppose some traders might want to get things out there faster, but it's not going to be a 3-day thing. It's going to be like, it's 5 hours, something like that, to get enough confirmations for an exchange to credit you. And that's the absolute worst case scenario in my mind, is like 5 to 10%, something like that. This blocks will be slow, but I think that's okay. I think that's kind of like almost a feature from a store of value perspective.
10 weeks for original Bitcoin to recover. Are the corporations wise? Should they be abandoning their development team?
Well, so they want different things. A lot of these businesses, they want larger blocks because they want more throughput. They want, I've been told by various CEOs that they will often like their company alone will often fill up half of the block in a given block, right? Like that's how many transactions they're sending. So they're clearly the ones that are utilizing the block space on their own. And they're the ones paying miners, and that's sort of the economy there. And if you sort of take a Keynesian point of view, in terms of economics, you can sort of see their point. It's that well, the velocity of money going through the system is higher if you have bigger block size. I tend to come from a more Austrian perspective, and I don't think that's the driver of the price. But the great thing about this fork is that we'll get to see who's right. Like, is it more of a Keynesian perspective where the velocity of money actually matters, or is it store value and saving and holders that actually give it value? And that's what we get to see.
Jimmy's being very reasonable. They want bigger blocks. They want more transactions. So we should just roll over and let them have the name. Isn't that right, Jeffrey Jones?
No, that's not. I didn't say that. I didn't say we should roll over and let them have the name. The name is not determined by businesses. The name is going to be determined by the social consensus or the social.
But again, they have the most
community around
transactions.
Bitcoin.
They have the most use for the name in a Keynesian perspective. They should have the name. Let them have the name.
People call it.
Jeffrey Jones, all that time we spent on Bitcoin development, all these open source projects, just let them have it, right?
Look, guys, let's just let them have it. All right. Look, it's clear the 2X team really wants it, and they really, hey, it's Christmas is coming up. I just say we give it to them. No, all right. So, a lot of great information's been already said. So, thank you, Jimmy, so much for your responses. I mean, every time I hear Jimmy speak, I remember what a reasonable logical person sounds like. But then you get back on Twitter, of course, and then it gets insane. But anyway, a few thoughts on this. Wallets, everybody wants to know what is going to happen. The 2X is coming up. What's going to happen? Everybody wants to know. The wallets and exchanges are preparing. The entire ecosystem is preparing. BitGo released their blog recently about how they're building all sorts of infrastructure in order to support both Segwit2X and the legacy chain from Core. And so services will be going down during that time, during the period of the fork. People will not be able to use most exchanges, most things like that. So debit cards, all these services, most of these services will be going down for a period of 24 to 72 hours. So make sure if you have, Bitcoin debit cards or something like that, that you guys, fill up before the fork and things like that. But, the fees right now are extremely low. The mempool has been empty. Really, most of the activity for Bitcoin happens off chain in this time and at this point in period of Bitcoin's evolution. So all of the transactions mostly happen on things like Coinbase with Bitcoin debit cards, Zappo, these type of things. There really not a whole lot of activity on chain. So again, to bring in the 2x, it doesn't make much sense when they're not actually utilizing Segwit yet. Segwit has gone back up to over 12%, but companies like Coinbase and blockchain.info haven't even started utilizing Segwit yet. And so this is something that's really important. We need to get the entire ecosystem to continue to go on board with this. And really, I agree with Jimmy that longer block times are not going to affect most users because, again, as most transactions occur off chain. So there's really the vast majority of Bitcoin users at this time will not be affected by 5-hour block times, even 24-hour block times. It really doesn't matter when you're talking about moving, millions of dollars and things like that. So, everyone will get what they want. The 2x will happen. People will get free money. The 2x will get the chance to put their chain against Bitcoin in the market and let it play out. Now, of course, there's a whole lot of socialized costs, as Jimmy has said and wrote about before. This is, I wish there was a better way to do this, but they really, really want their big blocks. And Bcash apparently is not enough for them, so they're going to go ahead and do this. But look, if you look at the futures markets, we already know the prices. The futures markets are all telling everybody what the price is, and that's 0.1 to 0.15 of Bitcoin, 10 to 15%. We know the 2x has no dev support, no community support, so I just don't see them really coming out on top of this. This will be probably the last time that we have to worry about threats via fork.
I still think the big blocks are a smokescreen. They really want control. They want control of the development, control of the code, and they're going to try to get it. Jimmy, what about this longest chain, most accumulated difficulty argument? If I have the longest chain and I'm mining Dogecoin, can I say that Dogecoin is now Bitcoin?
Well, so first of all, longest chain and most accumulated difficulty are two separate things. So you can have very low difficulty and mine lots and lots of blocks and have a longer chain, but you might not have more accumulated difficulty. So for example, Bitcoin Cash has a longer chain, but they don't have as much accumulated difficulty because most of the blocks were found with much lower difficulty due to their emergency difficulty adjustment. But yeah, companies are sort of arguing. I think any rational person can say, well, that's what you define it as. That's not what I define it as. And this is kind of the freedom that you have when you have a decentralized system. Anyone can call anything whatever. But, as far as a common definition, you only come to consensus when you have sort of a community behind it. And, it's not a dictatorship. Like it's not Soviet Russia where they were saying, okay, this person is a loyal party member, and then the next minute they say this person was a traitor all along, and then everyone has to believe it. That's not the way things work in Bitcoin, right? Like it's based on consensus. It's based on if a majority of people are like, hey, what the hell are you saying? You can call it by that definition if you want to, but I'm not going to follow that definition, and I'm going to stop using your service because you're just confusing everybody. There are consequences to this stuff. There's no centralized party that gets to decide names and things like that. So, I don't care what these people are doing. They're going to be natural consequences to defining things a certain way. And if you're defining things in a way to suit whatever agenda you have, well, yeah, you're going to have consequences. And if you don't think you're going to have consequences, I have a bridge to sell you. So, I'm okay. I'm okay with whatever people do. I'm not going to save them from themselves. Let them suffer the consequences of their actions and see.
So Jeffrey Jones, we're having a vote. Only the miners can vote. Brian Armstrong says this is letting the market decide. Is that all it is?
Well, as Jimmy pointed out, the longest chain doesn't apply. We already have future markets. We already know the price of this thing. Bitcoin is not paper agreements, because agreements don't work. They break down. The only thing that we can see that works with Bitcoin is consensus. And that doesn't have to be 95% per se, although the nodes for core are all over 90%. At this point, 90% of the nodes are for core, but that is the best way that we have to come up with, consensus with Bitcoin. And when people say there's no consensus, that of course is incorrect, because we have a new block every 10 minutes with tons and tons of transactions. And what Mike Belch and these people seem to think, that they're idiot, that we are complete idiots as a community, because they keep trying to spin up these fake nodes and thinking that, oh, that's community support. All of these new 1,000 nodes that just came up on Amazon Web Services, that must be organic community support for BTC1. And it's like, what? Come on, Mike. And he's putting this in emails saying, hey, we just got to get over a couple thousand. I want to see 5,000 nodes. Give me 5,000 nodes right now. And it's like, that sounds like an army general, like saying, give me this many troops in this area. I mean, that's not how Bitcoin works. It's not paper agreements. It is consensus that is found by users, the entire ecosystem, users of the entire ecosystem, and not just corporations.
Exit question. The Segwit2X fork will be successful. They will steal the name Bitcoin. They will pilot new users towards their Bitcoin. The old scientific and academic Bitcoin will die in a watery grave. Jimmy Song, yes or no?
Thing's gonna die. No, what are you talking about, man? What are you talking about, man? I mean, okay, first of all, you can't steal something that doesn't have like a particular place, right? Like, I can go steal your laptop. I can go steal, like, someone's car. I can't steal a name. That's not something that's thievable. And there's no central registry or copyright or trademark that you have to go. You can go and buy or whatever. That's just there. This is one of the things in a decentralized system. You don't have a central authority that grants you the name Bitcoin, and you have it. No, it's driven by community consensus. You can't steal something that somewhere or is like physical that you can take, and that's it's a name, right? And no one's stealing anything. And I mean, not to get too stoic on you here, but death is inevitable, right? Death is certain. So at some point, everything will die. So in that sense, there will be a watery grave for all of us and Bitcoin and 2X and whatever. It's really a question of when it happens. I think both chains survive once it happens. And I mean, say what you will about altcoins, but one thing they've done is they've all pretty much survived, right? As long as someone's willing to mine it, they keep going. And that's going to be the case for 2X. That's going to be the case for 1X, non-upgraded Bitcoin Core, whatever it is that you want to call it. I have a hard time like naming that thing, by the way. But yeah, I mean,
it's called it's fine. You mean the real Bitcoin?
Yeah.
The real Bitcoin. That one. Yeah, the not fake one.
Yeah, I mean, if someone wants to grab real Bitcoin on Twitter or something, I'm sure that would be awesome. Whatever, right? Like,
let's put Jimmy Song's anti-singularity pessimism aside. Let's go to Jeffrey Jones. Will Bitcoin die in a watery grave, being replaced by a corporate Bitcoin, which, for the record, actually does own Bitcoin.com in a centralized regulated naming system, will also allegedly own Coinbase.com, Zappo.com, and many others, BTC.com. Jeffrey Jones.
All right, look. All right, look, guys, we got a long way to go here. This is really, really early days. I mean, we haven't even hit the early adopter phase yet, which I expect to be next year. This is round one. This is the first boss. Maybe you can call this round 2, and you could call Jihan and Bitmain round 1. But at the most, this is round 1 or 2. We have a lot more stuff. And I like to say, all the time that Bitcoin is like, pretty much going downhill, blindfolded, on fire at 90 miles an hour with a brick wall at the bottom. Like there's always something, some kind of drama, but yet Bitcoin survives. It continues to survive over and over again. And there is reasons for that. And mostly it's because it's demand for a store of value, demand for a money that can be actually owned by the people and not be controlled by governments or kings. So, both exchanges will likely survive. Both chains will likely survive, because though they don't have replay protection natively, all the exchanges, wallets, and services are building this in custom so that their customers don't get screwed over. As Jimmy says, this is the socialized cost part. So, users will, who have no idea about what's going on with the forks or anything like that, they'll be okay. Bitcoin will survive this. We'll get our money and from the 2x coins and move on.
Moving on to issue 2. Changing screen. Let's see. The price of Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin jumped more than $400 in a single day, breaking all-time highs of $74.54 on Friday after opening at $70.30. The price of Bitcoin is currently $73.44. Looks like it topped out at 75, dipped back down to 71.76, and now another green candle. Jeffrey Jones, the price of Bitcoin, does it just keep going up, or will we see a top soon?
Well, I have to agree with Tone's analysis. I don't know if you guys got that, but I highly recommend checking out Tone's market analysis, where he kind of outlines his outlook for the upcoming fork. And what I have to agree with Tone about is that will probably top out, it's hard to call the top, but we're getting close to it now, between 7 or 8K. We're going to have a correction when the 2x fork comes in a couple of weeks. So Tone and a lot of people are still expecting another week or so of upside. Could be longer than that before we finally start correcting for the 2x fork, because look, we've gone up insane amounts. The gaps have to get filled. There has to be a correction to this madness. People need to take their profits, and so we definitely are expecting some kind of correction around the 2x fork, and I'm really still expecting to go out the year between 5 and 6K.
Jimmy Song, will the Bitcoin price go higher?
Well, so I have a different perspective on this, and I think the market dynamic that's happening right now, it was pretty accurately summed up when Bitcoin Gold froze their block. And I showed a tweet a while back how Bitcoin, went down right after that block, which showed that a lot of people were coming into Bitcoin to get their free Bitcoin Gold, and then they could leave. So a lot of this price action right now, I think, is people coming in to get their free 2x coins, and which is an interesting dynamic, because we've seen a similar price dynamic happen with Ethereum, because of all the ICOs, right? Like a lot of people are putting money into Ethereum because they wanted to get money into these ICOs, and then the ICOs would dump them, and then it would go back up because people wanted to get in on the next ICO, and so on. I think we're about to see kind of a similar, dynamic maybe happen, except without the selling. Although, people are gonna, it's not gonna hurt Bitcoin per se. But basically, I think, I see 2018 as the year of the hard fork, and a lot of people are gonna come back into Bitcoin to get their free coins, and maybe get out as soon as that fork is completed or something like that. But all this money that's been going to altcoins starting in 2014 into Ethereum since the beginning of this year, I think all that money comes back to Bitcoin. And I mean, that's good in terms of price. It's also bad because we're going to get back a lot of these scammers again. They've left for much more fruitful pastures in Ethereum and altcoins and ICOs and all that stuff, which has been good for Bitcoin in many ways. But we're going to get a lot of those people back. But I can see this price action just accelerating. And, I mean, I do watch tones like technical analysis and stuff, and we do seem like we're in a frothy territory. But, I mean, we might have some correction, but long term, I think we're in I guess shorter term, in a horizon of a year or two, I see us going much higher just because of all the people that are going to come back and all the people that are saying, okay, wow, we're going to get a dividend every 2 weeks. That's sort of the mentality I think people are going to have. So yeah, one thing about Ethereum and ICOs that I want to make an analogy to, you can do ICOs on a lot of other platforms, right? You can certainly do it on Ethereum Classic. There's other platforms like EOS and others that offer the same thing. But you can notice that you'll notice that a lot of people actually don't utilize a lot of those others. It's seen as safer to do an ICO on Ethereum. And it's for that reason that I think most people will be forking Bitcoin and not Ethereum or Monero or Zcash or whatever. I mean, certainly there might be some, but they're not going to have nearly the traction that forking Bitcoin is going to have because exchanges already support Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, we'll see, but the price action definitely seems to be indicating that people are coming in to get their free coins. They saw what happened with Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Gold. And, it's certainly worth something on futures markets, and they want their free money.
Jeffrey Jones, the price of Bitcoin this time next week, higher or lower?
Definitely higher. And I'd just like to comment one quick second, on what Jimmy said about people, the price rise may be due to people coming in to get some free money. And I really don't really think that's a big part of the case, because the 2x still kind of might not even happen, right? It's still it's being pushed forward but we really, with all the community people pushing back, it doesn't look like it. To some people, it doesn't look like it might even happen. So look, we have to look what's going on with the world, right? We have all of these negative interest rates. We have all of these huge markets that are just at their top, just ready for the big, huge correction that are coming up. People are waking up. The floodgates are opening, and Bitcoin is really becoming to be everywhere. It's on all. We used to get so excited about one article on Yahoo, and now we're on CNBC all the time. So I mean, I just think it's because it's time. Bitcoin has proven its security. It's proven its resilience, it's proven its utility, and I just think that people are waking up and finally hopping on the bandwagon.
Jimmy Song, higher or lower?
Well, I mean, I think you can that's probably true on a year-to-year basis, but short term, you look at sort of the altcoin drop in the last month or two, and you see that a lot of those altcoins are coming into Bitcoin. It's pretty obvious just from the chart. So. Especially the negative correlation that altcoins have had in the last month or so, it definitely looks like people are coming in from altcoins to Bitcoin. Higher or lower, I've forced prediction, so I'm going to say higher, but I haven't said high. I don't think I've ever said low. What information that gives you, like, ever on the show. So. But that's more hope talking, and sort of me being just sort of an optimist in general. So, but yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, I've learned to stop thinking that way. But that said, there are some good reasons to believe that it will go higher. I think more money will be flooding into Bitcoin as 2x approaches. And I've said this before. I think 2x is a good thing. I think we need to, and I hope they don't put in replay protection, so everybody immunizes against that now, because we're going to have a lot more of that next year, and that's a good thing, to immunize against all of these things and coins, security, and store of value properties in the midst of what looks like an attempt to subvert that. So, yeah.
There's no good thing about Segwit2X, but if everyone says we're going higher, it might be time to take some profits. Let's move on to predictions or story of the week. Jeffrey Jones, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week?
So I guess the story of the week would be the CME. If I had to pick something out of the obvious, the low-hanging fruit, the CME futures market. I mean, that is just huge. The institutional money that everybody always talked about, that everybody always told us about, that wall of money, that proverbial wall of money, they say, seems to be about to enter. Like I said, I do predict next year that we'll be entering the early adopter phase. So that is 2% of the world will be hopping into Bitcoin, and you know, we're already 1.5% of gold, so we're definitely getting there. And yeah, that's an amazing amount of news, and we'll actually be talking a lot about the CME Group and their futures market this Sunday on my show, on the Bitcoin News Show.
Jimmy Song, excited about the CME?
Well, I haven't been paying too much to that, to be honest with you. I mean, it's looks like a financial derivative of Bitcoin and not exactly Bitcoin. That to me is just sort of like Wall Street. First place is all the derivatives that you can make out of it. I don't know. I haven't studied enough to have a good opinion on how derivatives affect the underlying market. That said, my story of the week is, you know, I've been teaching here at Stanford. You know, I did my programming blockchain seminar, got out 18 more developers as a result of that. I taught yesterday at Dev++. And you know, that is obviously still going on. I'm just really excited for the new developers that are coming into this space. And I've said this before, developers are in many ways heroes in this space because they're taking on the negative externalities. They're paying the socialized costs of a lot of this stuff, and they're adding value to the network. And I want to remind you guys, you know, like, appreciate your developers, especially the open source ones that aren't even getting paid any money. You know, the developers are what create the technical anti-fragility of Bitcoin, and I believe that to be a very important thing, important reason why Bitcoin is priced as high as it is. Obviously, there's a economic and social anti-fragility as well, which we all partake, you know, as holders or as part of this community, and that's important too. And you know. But you know, let's encourage developers. Let's appreciate them. Let's you know, instead of like fighting with them or whatever, you know, cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in particular is one place where developer value is so clear and evident, and it's a great space to get into. And if any of you are watching and are thinking about it, you know, to start learning and contributing and getting into this. That's my story of the week.
A beautiful shout out to developers from Jimmy Song, just on the eve of the corporation stealing political power away from them forever. Well, let's see. I bought a new microphone today, but apparently it doesn't work. So that was a waste of time and money. We are accepting donations. That's true. If you'd like to donate to the World Crypto Network, you can donate to the code on your screen right now. Don't forget to give this episode a thumbs up and a share. We have more than 900 live viewers. If everyone gave us a thumbs up, that'd be more than 900 thumbs. Thanks so much for watching. We'll be back next time. We've got the Vortex Show, the Bitcoin News Show coming up this weekend, and Today in Bitcoin tomorrow morning. Until then, bye-bye.